when proteins don't fold correctly and go off and do their work, they can actually stick together. And those plaques and tangles are really at the heart of unfortunate diseases like Alzheimer's and anything where the brain is suffering. Our first many years was working with chronic illness. And those people, you could see a big difference, and it felt like what I was doing really mattered. So I never went back to the tech industry.
One thing you notice with the NanoVi device is just after a few minutes, you start noticing just better mental clarity. And I've talked to many people in the clinic, and as they're using the device, they're like, I don't know if this is placebo or what, but my brain feels clear.
They called and just said, we've never seen anything. We test everything, and this is just remarkable. And they showed before and after one session an improvement in VO2 max of 7.8%. So that literally means you could be biologically younger with one session.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unreasonable Health, and I'm your host, Reagan Archibald, and I've got a great guest with me today. Many of you have come into the clinic and you've used our NanoVi technology, and you probably wondered, like, why am I breathing this air, and what is that structured water really doing? And so Rowena Gates, who is the co-founder of NG3 Corporation, she was the one that actually helped launch this technology, and asked her to be on the podcast today because of the presentation I heard her give at Da Vinci 50 a couple of months ago in Arizona. And Rowena, she has been a serial entrepreneur since 1995, so I think all of you will enjoy hearing from her. She's helped set up some of the earliest companies to offer internet-based solutions to the logistics industry. Rowena received her PhD from the University of Washington for her work on strategic alliances as a tool for economic development. When not helping bring NanoVi to the world, Rowena enjoys a range of outdoor activities, family, friends, and striving to become a better version of herself. Rowena, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's so nice to be here and good to see you again.
Great to see you again. And man, I was just blown away by the presentation you gave because, I learned about NanoVi a few years ago, and so we purchased a unit for our company, and we've had patients use it. And then after I heard you speak, I said, for the first time, I finally understand why I'm using it. Same with Dan Sullivan. He's been using it every day for like 2 years, and he had no idea why. I knew about misfolded proteins and oxidative stress, but maybe you could just give people an understanding of what NanoVi is and why it's important for them.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a sort of a desktop device, and you're breathing humidified air from the machine. And what we're doing is influencing the humidity as it goes through the device in a way that changes the nature of the water droplets so that they're more ordered. Or what that means is the water molecules are more closely pressed together on the surface of the water droplets. And we want that state because it will transfer across the mucous membrane into your system and influence the cellular water. And what happens there is you get this layer of ordered water, or it's, if people have heard of the fourth phase of water or EZ water, it's a gel-like layer of water. So it's a little different from liquid or solid, and it forms on the surfaces inside the cell. And what we care especially about is the protein surfaces, because the protein rely on that ordered water that surrounds them in order to have the energy to fold. And so we're helping just kind of boost the whole system a little by creating a better environment for the proteins. And what that actually is, it's a transfer of entropy of order to the chain of amino acids, which is an unorganized protein, so that that protein can snap into its three-dimensional shape. And it has to be in the 3D shape before it can work.
Man, now that is awesome because if you think about it, what's the problem with having misfolded proteins? I mean, what kind of symptoms might show up, and what uh, clinical indications have you guys seen?
Well, it's a stress on the body because anytime they're misfolded or they become unfolded, misfolded, they have to be fixed. And so that's your body's repair capacity is getting used to fix the proteins. The area that most people are familiar with are tangles or plaques of proteins, which are implicated in neurodegenerative diseases. So when proteins don't fold correctly and go off and do their work, they can actually stick together. And those plaques and tangles are really at the heart uh, of some pretty unfortunate diseases like Alzheimer's and anything where the brain is suffering.
Yeah, like Parkinson's, ALS, all those things. I mean, and one of the things, if you go to the website, the ENG3, ENG3.com, is that the website?
Yes.
And you guys can see there's some amazing testimonials from, NFL football players to UFC fighters, people who've had traumatic brain injuries. But why would it be important for somebody who is, let's say it's not an athlete? How can it benefit somebody like Dan Sullivan, who is very open about his usage of the machine?
Yeah. Well, for all of us, especially Dan, me, other people, the older you get, the more accumulation of oxidative damage. And as long as we breathe oxygen, we have oxidative stress. And as we get older, we accumulate more and more damage. And it's essentially this downward spiral that we call aging. And so we really want to break that spiral and keep everything as healthy as possible. And so repairing as fast as you can, as well as you can, is really the key, especially for people like Dan Sullivan, who's older than me and has had many more years to accumulate oxidative damage.
Man, well, and it's so cool because you think of oxidative damage in like an athlete who's had a traumatic brain injury, or I've had several myself. But one thing you notice with the NanoVi device is just after a few minutes, you start noticing just better mental clarity. And I've talked to many people in the clinic, and as they're using the device, they're like, I don't know if this is placebo or what, but my brain feels clear. And so I think it's phenomenal, but my curiosity is how did was this technology invented? I mean, where did it come from in the first place?
Well, oh, first of all, just so you know that we have better oxygen utilization. So that's why your brain feels clearer. And we can show that your body's using the oxygen better, and that gives you a little boost. But where it came from was looking at it was really cell biology, where they determined that the water surrounding proteins is what gives the protein the energy to fold because there's almost nothing else that could be going on. And so that part was all known in cell biology. And then we even knew that the body recharges that water. It has to do that constantly so these proteins keep folding. And so that was known in cell biology as well, a specific wavelength that's emitted, and it's actually a free radical, a reactive oxygen species that emits this specific wavelength. And that was known to not only be a free radical, but it also played this important role of influencing the water. And so my partner, Hans Eng, who's the person behind the technology, looked at that and said, well, maybe we could create the same kind of an outcome by influencing the water droplets outside the body with that specific wavelength. And so that was the first thing that we did. We could test the device, we could test the water, and we could test the person, and we could show that that actually works to create it essentially artificially outside the body and augment what the body's doing. And then later, with more testing in Italy, they could confirm that there were other wavelengths that we could add that were even more potent. And so we've added those wavelengths into the technology. And so that now the most powerful device we have has 3 different wavelengths, and the other 2 have 2 wavelengths that are even more powerful. And so that's all been tested out to show that it has that superior outcome.
That's wild. So, and I was unaware of this. So you can actually there's upgrades that you're making on the water all the time. So you have
Uh,
machines where if you find different frequencies of water, different then you can actually upgrade the machine.
ours is maxed out.
Okay,
And
got it.
so, yeah, so it's there now. And I think the first wavelength we used was bioidentical. The others are taking it a step farther than what the body naturally does. That's really the point. And just so everybody understands, there's all these different wavelengths in the spectrum that a lot of them are therapeutic and helpful. And many of what you may have seen before are, say, red light therapies or lasers, things that are maybe 600 to 8 or 900 nanometers in length. We're much higher than that. We're above 1200 on up. And so the difference is that our wavelengths are absorbed by water, whereas things like red light therapy goes through the water. You could see it through a glass of water. And so it goes through and it will hit the particles, whereas ours is absorbed by the water. And that's why we need the humid air to carry it from the device to the person.
Oh wow. Man, that is it's phenomenal how structures work. And if you think about the big risk that we all have is it's not cardiovascular disease, it's not diabetes after the age of 80, it's Alzheimer's and dementia. It's when our brain starts to go. And to have an opportunity to clear out those the oxidative stress, the free radicals, the misfolded proteins, it's amazing because I don't see any downside. I mean, I've literally there's some days where I'll be breathing it all day long. Is that too much? I mean, I mean, I don't put the cannula in. Oh, you've got it right there. Okay, yes.
Yeah, no, it's not too much. The only time that you would start a little bit slowly is if a person has a heavy toxic load. If
Yeah.
there is a lot of toxicity, then they want to go more gradually so that they don't overdo it and feel unwell as a result of the detox. Even though the detox is good for you, it's just you want to go a little more slowly so it's comfortable.
That is awesome. Okay, and what are some of the signs of detox that people should be aware of if they start using this?
It's usually the people know when they are going to have a detox reaction. They're people that are already sensitive. So for if you don't already have that going on, it's very unlikely it would start with NanoVi. And it's diarrhea, headache, and skin rashes. And we've
Oh,
seen all of them, but it's only in people that have been really, challenged in their elimination of toxins.
got it. Okay. Well, yeah, so be aware of that, everybody. And it's one of the reasons why we use different binders when we have people using the nano device. And then the other thing we found that works really well in conjunction with it are peptides. Peptides are just, particularly folded molecules. Same thing we're doing with the NanoVi. And so we can use a peptide like Cmax or cerebrolysin. We'll do an IV of it, and then people will be using the NanoVi right after we've done the brain rejuvenation stem cell treatment. And it is wild how we just see the brain just like where people have had, decades of, not feeling like their brain functions to literally within 24 hours, their brain's completely online.
I love that. And it makes perfect sense because peptides are small proteins. They're maybe two up to about 50 amino acids. And
Mhm.
then they call it a protein if it's bigger. And if you're putting them in there and then the NanoVi helps them work better, that is a perfect combination. It's like a hand and glove combination for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Uh, and so with any peptide or any senolytics, any of those things that are helping the cellular function, then it's going to amp them up, basically. They'll work better.
Yeah, it's so fun to see how all these things piece together. And my Japanese teacher, Dr. Maekawa, she's one of my great mentors. And I remember she shared this book called The Hidden Message of Water by Dr. Emoto in Japan.
Yeah.
And so we used to put messages into the water, intention, and we'd put appreciation on our water bottles and stuff because in his work, for those of you, it sounds like you're familiar with the work, Rowena. Um, is that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
Oh,
beautiful work.
isn't
Everybody
it
look
beautiful?
at it. It's just pretty.
Oh, because yeah, what Dr. Emoto did is he had you give water essentially a word or a message or an intention, and then he would freeze the water and capture the crystals of the water. And based on the music or the word that the water was given, that water would have a message in it. And if you said like beautiful to the water, you're beautiful, then the water would form these gorgeous crystals. And but then at the same time, if you played like kind of negative music, the water would like form these poorly formed crystals would emerge. And but tell me what your thoughts are on his work, and does that relate to the NanoVi process at all?
I think there's this huge area of water and water science to that there's so much going on with water, and we're just like it's the tip of the iceberg. What we do is something kind of it's very unique, and it's a new, different approach for a technology. It's just the very beginning of what we're going to learn about water and the information that it carries and various special properties of it that it to me it seems like it's a really there's huge potential to do amazing things with water, and Emoto's work was like this glimpse into it, and it's very visual, so people understand you're seeing pictures of these crystals, so it's really apparent to look at, but the idea that in our bodies and our systems, there's information carried in the water that could go through generations. And, there's that whole mind body connection, all of that. To me, is very interesting. And I think our piece of it is kind of where we're focused, but the whole, all the possibilities and that positive comments and mindsets and all of that is that it doesn't surprise me at all that water's a kind of sensitive substance.
Yes. Wow. And of all the things for you to study, I mean, you've got such an incredible background. What was it that pulled you into NanoVi in the first place?
Oh, well, initially I was in logistics and mostly B2B online commerce. And I said that I would help with Hans, and who's the founder and the person behind the science. And I said I'd assist. And then when we got going with things, it was so rewarding, and there's so much potential to really help people, and so appreciated by people that are challenged. Our first many years was working with chronic illness, and those people, they it you could see a big difference, and it felt like what I was doing really mattered, so I never went back to the tech industry.
What are some of the cases that you remember?
Well, with the chronic illnesses, it's challenging because of medical claims.
Sure.
However, we've seen results with over 50 of them, and that includes any of the metabolic challenges, autoimmune, any of those areas, certainly cognitive function. And almost all of them are measurable because
Mm.
people are being monitored. You can see inflammatory markers or A1Cs or whatever they are. Or with cognitive function, it's more typically brain scans, but it is apparent to people. And then more recently, there's been more focus on longevity and wellness and people staying healthy,
Yeah.
and that's been really fun. And then the other area for us is performance, because both mentally and physically, it can be a performance improvement. So,
And one of the studies you shared that I was just blown away by was the VO2 max study. Do you mind talking about that a little bit to our listeners?
oh, I'm happy to. So, VO2 max is a measure of, it's a metabolic measure, and it's really showing how well your body's performing. And they consider it the most effective measure of biological age because the American Heart Association correlates biological age with VO2 max because it's such a good indicator of health. And it's also a very good indicator of performance. So athletes watch it because if they can improve their VO2 max, they can improve their output and their performance.
Mm.
And so a testing group studied the device, and they called and just said, "We've never seen anything. We test everything, and this is just remarkable." And they showed before and after one session an improvement in VO2 max of 7.8%. So that literally means you could be biologically younger with one session.
Isn't that crazy? Because
Yeah.
7% is substantial. And, you know, if anyone listens to like Peter Attia, his big thing with age reversal is look at your VO2 max. And so if you could improve it by 7.8% just after one session, did you know, was there like a plateauing effect? Like if you did three sessions, did that drop it by like 24% I mean, I'm
I'd be a baby by now.
yeah, I guess I would be too. I'd be yeah, Benjamin Button style.
They only did the before and after one session. And so that's really all we know that, it's statistically significant at that level. And we don't know either, longer sessions or over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
But we have had other indicators that have benefit over time, like total antioxidant activity. And
Mm,
so that improved. The one study shown over one session it improves, but it also improves over a 5-day period. And just to put that one in perspective, your body's innate antioxidant capacity is super important for mitigating free radical damage and reducing oxidative stress.
man.
So
And so critical in the fact that you can, you know, spend. I know there's certain sessions, certain machines where you can literally a session is 15, 20 minutes, doesn't take a long time. You know, you can easily put it by your desk. You can like you've got yours. I'll bring mine in just a second here. Something that I wish all my patients had. So if you just had to think of the top three benefits that you've noticed in your own personal life from the NanoVi, what would you say they are?
well, this is very personal, but one of them is tinnitus. It just is gone as long as I
Mm.
keep using it. If I go a couple weeks and I'm traveling and I don't have access to one, I will notice it coming back, which is not fun because you don't want that. Um,
No.
and then the other one, I was surprised. As much as I use it, I discovered that when I use it before bed, I sleep more soundly. And just that's another area that's measured with heart rate variability. And with a continuous monitor at about minute 7 or 8, the stress index goes way down. And
Mm.
so I'm assuming if you just even put in 10 minutes before you go to bed and help your body drop out of stress mode, then you're likely to get a better night's sleep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
That
so those are only two. And then I use it on a really regular basis. So other than that, I don't. The other thing at the very beginning, my eyesight improved really pretty significantly. It didn't become perfect, and it's not gotten worse, which I figure is a good thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, look at that. Tinnitus, sleeping better, and eyesight improvements. Otherwise, it's not really that beneficial.
Yeah. Who knows
Wow.
where the brain would be?
Yeah, that's awesome. So if we look at where NanoVi is going into the future and some of the technology, What new applications do you see, or what are you guys doing as a company to stay innovative?
We are our biggest area is we're doing more research, and we're also looking at some combinations because we get reports of there's far better outcomes with other interventions. And so we've looked at the scientific basis for that. And now we're taking a better look at how that actually plays out on humans. Or and so good examples are uh, hyperbaric oxygen, red light therapy, PEMF, cryotherapy, any of those areas. It's that combination. So how we can improve that.
Wow. I would love to do a study with you on using peptides like the PE2228 or Panilion or Epitalin or any of these peptides that have some direct impact on the brain and see how stacking peptides, just like there's a VO2 max study, I wonder if we couldn't figure out if we had a, you know, better improvement in oxidative stress and some of the things with peptides and NanoVi being stacked.
I'd love that. Do the peptides last a really long time, or do you normally see them fall off after a washout period?
The metabolism of peptides is pretty quick. And so, but you'll see that the genes will stay turned on for a long time based on the health of the environment. So I'd imagine with NanoVi that we could get the genes turned on as soon as possible. And that would be, and then keep it turned on with the NanoVi. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, really. And so it would be an interesting study to figure out so how you could kind of control it against if they didn't have that
Right.
combination. They
Yeah.
done a lot of studies with athletes, and they're good because you can give them a washout period, and then they go overstress their bodies, and you can use a placebo device on them versus the real device,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And so it's sort of for you, you're doing things that have these long-term upgrades. And so then it's a little harder to isolate the nano V impact.
Yeah. God,
Yeah.
well, I want to show everybody the device. And so this is this is it. Um, so for those of you who are wondering, what does it look like? For those of you who are listening, here it is. And such a cool machine. And you have the what we call the microphone, that's where the breath comes out, but very easy to use. You can set it up at your house. It's a nice way of resetting several times throughout the day if you have the equipment. So, Rowena, and the best place for people who want to get a machine would be the eng3.org or .com. Is that the best
Yeah.
place?
Yes, and there's contact information they could just call, or there's a form on there, and people should know that we don't spam like, every day is we tend to in that what we send out is information like study results and information on use of the device. So if you do want to fill in the form, it's kind of safe. You're not going to get bombarded from signing in there. And it could either be on on by contacting online, or phoning in is great. And would be more than happy to work with you.
Awesome. And by the way, Rowena and her team, they're phenomenal. If you have any questions, they're very prompt, very professional. So for those of you who are looking to get a machine or looking to upgrade your health in some of the most profound ways possible, snag a NanoVi. I think just the fact that you can improve your VO2 max by almost 8% with one session is like it's a no-brainer. I mean, that's amazing. So Rowena, I really appreciate you coming on the show and for all the work you're doing. Any kind of final things you'd love to share about the technology that we haven't talked about in the podcast yet?
I think that is generally it. I think the biggest thing for people is to just integrate it with what you're already doing. Like we sit here and do emails, so my device is right here, and I do it at the same time. And the only ones we have that don't work for us are the ones that people aren't using.
Yep.
Really, oh, you really want to make sure you kind of get the time in, and even it doesn't matter if you don't notice it. We've got all the evidence, and it's been studied showing that it's still working for you, even if you don't start doing backflips or something.
That's great. I love it. And we'll be running everyone's blood labs anyway, and then we see nice changes in C-reactive protein and homocysteine specifically. So we'll be watching as well. But Rowena, it's been a great pleasure, and we'll want to make sure to have you back on again as new research comes out. And for those of you who would love to get in touch with Rowena or the team, what's the best email that they can reach out to you or your team at?
The easiest is info@eng3.com, and that's an ENG3.com, info@eng3.com.
Awesome. And thank you so much. And for those of you who love the show, make sure you share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. And we will see you on the next episode. Rowena, thanks again for being on today.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You got it.